all God. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. Romans 1 verse 16. This is one of the most famous verses in the book of Acts, if not in the New Testament. It's a life verse for many. Many quote the verse but stop after the first comma. They take it to mean that they will not be intimidated by others who say they can't preach. Unfortunately, the focus is on them and not where it should be focused. But wrapped inside this little verse is an important truth, namely, God is the one who brings about salvation. This power of God's revealed through this gospel, which means good news. Yes, we must take an act of faith to believe, but the saving part is all God, make no mistake about that. More than enough. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Romans 1 verse 17. The people of the Old Testament came to God by faith. The people in the New Testament and beyond come to God the same way, through faith. It's not faith in our abilities, our talents, our mentors, our intelligence, our good looks, our good works, our money, or even in our philosophy. Our faith is in Jesus Christ. Period. To this day we try to make it things other than faith in Jesus Christ. We want it to be about other things, or why else would we expand on the finality of Christ? Jesus Christ is more than enough to save us, more than enough to keep us, more than enough to see us through until He calls us home. Without excuse. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people, who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world God's invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. Romans 1 verses 18 to 20. It's often been argued, but what about those in places like Borneo who have never heard the gospel? Is it fair that God would send them to hell? But at the very least they have seen nature and have seen God's power at work. What they do, what this is up to them, as the next few verses point out, but for them, they are without excuse. But forget for a moment about Borneo or Burma or villages along the Amazon. Think about the people you meet day to day. What about them? What are their excuses for not accepting God's grace? Are they too without excuse? I think you know the answer, but the question then is, what are you doing about it? Sometimes they just need a little prodding and encouragement to worship the Creator. You really never know how close they are or how far away they are from believing. At the brink. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Romans 1 verse 21. When you try to reason away God, you end up with a foolish and dark heart. It's interesting, and very sad, to watch someone go downhill in their journey through life. Often people refuse to acknowledge a Creator because of a past hurt or pain. I'm oversimplifying the problem, of course, because the journey away from God is complex and gradual before the one event or series of events puts the person over. However, we seem to start out knowing the wonders and thrills of God's creation, different than having faith in the God of that creation, but through time and life situations we stray. Someone you know is right there, at the brink of moving away from God or going closer towards Him. Pray that you will have the words to say and the right opportunity to say it. This may be the last opportunity the person will ever have to know the truth. Exchanging glory. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being in birds and animals and reptiles. Romans 1 verses 22 to 23. In the times this was written there was a lot of idol worship was huge. With references to birds, animals, and reptiles, Paul is speaking to the Greeks, Orientals, and Egyptians. Man has clearly descended in worship from the glory of the immortal God to animals, preferring the created being to the Creator Himself. Before we criticize and judge that generation, we need to take a close look at our own culture. Our television shows reveal a lot about who we are: American Idol, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, okay, a bit dated, HBO, Showtime, SportsCenter 24/7, and even YouTube video sensations. From those few shows alone I can deduce that we love sports, money, talent, fame, and entertainment. Even many of our churches put men and women on pedestals and in front of television cameras. Millions flock to hear them preach, not to have their hearts changed. Mind you. But to hear what the speakers have to say. Think about what you worship. Before you immediately deny you worship anything ahead of God, consider closely what you spend your free time doing. Because we cannot physically see God, it's much easier to worship that which we can see. Taking regular inventory of what we worship will only yield positive rewards.